Welcome to Wrecked, a Fat Records fan podcast. I'm Laz, here with Alison. Hello, Alison.
Hi, I'm Alison still.
Yeah, and we are doing Guns and Wankers for dancing and listening. That's what we're talking about today. But Alison, how have you been? Hopefully well.
Hanging out here, hanging
Yeah.
in the 100-degree heat,
Oof. I'm sorry to hear that, but hopefully your air conditioning is working. So
Just running on hopes and dreams.
aren't we all? Aren't we all? Do anything interesting since the last time we chatted?
Nothing too much. I think I did a whole month of local shows,
Mm-hmm.
which now I'm taking a break because I think I overdid it.
Okay. I went and saw Streetlight Manifesto for the first time. Probably the first ska I've seen
Yeah,
in
like
7 years or so.
You're not a super big ska fan.
No, I told someone the other day there's two ska bands that I really like, and one is the
Yeah.
Specials and the other is
Yeah.
Streetlight. So I was happy to see them.
Weirdly, have not seen Streetlight, and then the day that they're coming here, I accidentally bought tickets to go see Wu-Tang and Nas instead.
Both are good. I've seen Wu-Tang, but Wu-Tang and Nas together, that's actually that might beat Streetlight just by a little bit. Like,
I've
in
been
my
at
opinion.
festivals where both Wu-Tang and Nas have played before, but I usually go see other shit. So I was like, we were like, okay, no, this time we're gonna just go sit down and see it and do that. But yeah, I'm bummed I'm missing Streetlight. Did Catbite open? Who are they?
No, it was some local band, and I guess I forgot the name. I think they were called Elder Brother. They were from Oakland, and the reason they opened is that their guitarist used to be the merch person for Streetlight. So they got a little bit of like a little cronyism going on there, right? Well, maybe not. They're just helping out their friends, but
I forget you live in California and have more than 3 ska bands like we do.
They weren't a ska band. They were like an indie rock band. They had songs that kind of reminded me of like Pink Floyd a little bit, like in like tone and mood, right? Not necessarily in artistry, but they were totally different than Streetlight. So it was like this sort of like sad boy indie rock, and then Streetlight. It was a good show. I was in San Francisco. It was fun. My friend basically called me like 5 hours before. He's like, "Hey, you want to go?" And I was like, "Yes, let's go."
I love that.
So he had an extra ticket. I ended up just buying him drinks. And the best part was we parked across the street, and as we're leaving, something happened with the gate for the parking garage. So we didn't pay the fare. So
Nice.
I saved another $30.
That's painful. I thought 15 is like 10
Oh no, this
15
is
bad
San
here.
Francisco. $30 was actually very good for parking in San Francisco. So
God.
I've paid 50 before. And that's really just you laugh, but that's
No,
like
this is
insurance.
painful. That's a city life, though. I
No,
understand.
you need to understand. San Francisco has the highest rate of
I know.
broken windows of vehicles. So you paying $50 to me is insurance to not get my car smashed in.
This is why I don't buy nice cars.
I've never even owned a new
I don't
car.
leave shit in my car. I don't. I buy dinged up ones on purpose.
I drive a Honda
better.
CR-V. It is great. So
I have a
like
Scion, so
There you go.
that came with dents in the door. I'm like, yes,
Nice.
that's the one.
Pre-punk.
It's punk. I just put stickers on it. And just
Right?
leave
That's
them
all you
on.
have to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we talk about Guns and Wankers? I think you want to. This is a short album. What are
It is
the
21 minutes.
right? What are the let's get the before we talk about some of these reviews that we're going to talk about first instead of last. Let's get the hard facts on this album out of the way, right?
All right. Well, this is for dancing and listening,
Yes.
which I truly believe it is. Some people will probably maybe argue against the title, but I think it's an enjoyable album front to back. So the listening part is true. I also think punks would like to dance to it, but that's just my opinion. let me just go over like the weird brief history of this album. I've followed it for a very, very long time. If you like the band Snuff, this is part of Snuff and another band called the Wild Hearts. They kind of started in the early 90s. This album in particular was released in 1994. They all originate from England. It's kind of a split between two labels. The English one is Rugger Bugger, and then they did an American release with Fat Records, and that's why we are here. Let's see, I think the current members, because like now they've kind of did a reunion, but not, it's really, really up in the air. They're playing a lot of shows in London and like some festivals now, but before they were just like on hiatus, if not done, because it was really just like a moment in the 90s. So those past members are Duncan Remmons, Pat Walters, Wes Wasley, that was really hard, and then Jules Dean was also a past member but is in the current lineup. And this is such a weird forming of a band because it's literally a megazoid of two bands put together, and then they did a tour in with the bands Leatherface and NoFX and stuff like that, and that's I guess how Fat Mike kind of got to know them and get a hold of them. And then they also decided to do like a demo, and then they took those kind of demos that they worked on, did a like tour in Spain, and then they recorded this album. Actually, they recorded 3 EPs. So one's called hardcore, one's called pop, and one's called metal. And they're none of those genres, really. But basically, since Fat Mike had showed interest in putting out like the US version of this, like they kind of made like this compilation from all those EPs and did it as an 8-track release called This Album, and then released it on Fat Records. And then this band kind of split up again because Snuff decided to get back together at some point. This band kind of claim to fame is the fact that they had the song Skin Deep in Fat Records compilation Fat Music for Fat People. So I think that's the most well-known song from Guns and Wankers. I will say that on Fat Music for Fat People, my favorite pocket is Skin Deep into Feeding the Fire by News for a Name. I'm like, it's a little yummy sandwich. I love it.
So it's good too. Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Skin Deep is definitely one of my favorite songs on this little EP or collection.
Yeah, and then so I was looking for different stuff, obviously, about Guns and Wankers. Obviously, there's not a whole lot because, like I said, it's like a blip in the 90s.
Very much a flash in the pan.
Yeah. And all the stuff that I looked up was also the recent re-release for their vinyl, which I have.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, the minute I saw it, I was like, money's just flying out of my pocket. It's like, God. But it's on the Fat Record website. It says, this is the description of the band. This is Snuff's side band. They sound like Snuff, and they have those silly little English accents like Snuff. So if you like Snuff, you'll like this. And if you've never heard of Snuff, then fuck off.
I saw that description the other day and I laughed. I thought that was great.
They should have said, instead of fuck off, they should have just said bullocks.
Bollocks to you.
I was like, such a missed opportunity.
For real.
I know. So, like many episodes before us, it's funny that people will not write a legit review on anything notable, like not a whole lot on like Discogs unless it's a really beloved thing, or I'm trying to think where else you would write an actual legit music review. For some reason, people really love writing them on Amazon, and I still can't like wrap my brain around.
It's easy because it's very just open. You can just do it. You can just go write a music review.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. I think Amazon reviews is the views of the people. They're the true.
Sure, let's go with that. Right? Not. Let's do it. The views of the people. I'm down.
And this is what I was teasing you. This guy named Brian Payne wrote Just Okay. This album was just okay. It fulfills what was done for it to do. It just doesn't have any catchy songs. Oh well, you can't win them all. It did what it needed to do, but he was like not impressed.
Sure.
I was like,
sure.
Is that how you feel about this album?
I get it.
The heck. I really like this one also as well as somebody named Brandywine. I don't think it's a real name. Anyway, great songwriting and vocal harmonies are impressive. Don't let the goofy name and cover fool you. This is high quality power punk pop, very comparable to Leatherface, and just because they're not. And not just because they're English. I'm like, okay, that's fair. Great songwriting and vocal harmonies are impressive. Honestly, this is better than Snuff, and I wish Guns N' Roses released more. Guns N' Wankers. Oh my god, I can't believe I knew it was gonna Freudian slip Guns N' Roses in there. Yeah.
Well, we could talk about the title, the band name in a minute.
They wish that they were more material, and I'm like, yeah. I wonder how this would have panned out further, but I'm sure people are happy to have more Snuff, so whatever.
I definitely think if when bands stay together more and they write more, they mature and they kind of grow together. And I definitely think Guns N' Wankers is a band that had they matured a little more, they could have put out a lot of great stuff. So
I think if they would have done more material of any sort, even if it was they just released EPs forever, I think they're all really good musicians in their own right. I don't think it would have been bad because they're kind of a weird power team of things. So
but let's talk. I want to talk about the band name though. I think the band name is awesome. Right, so Guns and Wankers, you could at the time that they formed this band, 1991, right, I think is when they sort of came together. Guns N' Roses was probably at the height of their popularity. I could see a bunch of punks just thinking, man, those guys are fucking wankers. Like, I could see it. And so Guns and Wankers is such a great, almost like call out to Guns N' Roses. I love the band name, like Guns and Wankers. And it also, to me, like describes a whole subset of like, and even though they're British, a whole subset of American culture in general. Yeah. So
a lot of people didn't.
A
lot of people didn't think that Americans would get it. Thus, when they were like releasing the American version of this, they're like, do they even know what a wanker is?
Yes, punks know what wankers are because the Sex Pistols called everybody wankers. And so like I feel like early punk kind of picked up on that terminology. So I think we know what it is, but some regular person who's like, Guns and Wankers, I don't get it. I like Guns N' Roses. Well, friend, you may be the wanker.
I think America loves the pastime of calling someone a jerk off as well. So I feel like it translates.
It's such a better word.
I think it is. It has an element of silliness to it that kind of just makes it even worse.
And it's fun to say, right? You fucking wanker, right? Like it's such a great word. So I love this title, or this band name. So it is. I really.
What's also crazy is that it is so silly and over the top in a way, but then like you listen to the music and you're just like, this isn't really that silly. I mean, it definitely has it in there, but it's not like the forefront of everything. It's not like when you listen to like a NoFX album, you know exactly what's happening here, So I'm like, it's kind of deceiving. I mean, everything about this whole thing, like the band name, the album cover, people are also
the album title, right? Like
what do you think about the album cover?
So it's got a couple of folks dancing on it, and you might think it's like a jazz album or a swing album or something. Just from the cover, like I'm gonna go look at it again, but that's like what I think about it. It definitely betrays what's on the record. So, but I mean, like isn't that like kind of the punk thing, right? Like you look at it and it looks very like oldies almost, right? Like, oh, I'm about to put on my some music from
Yeah,
1969
and I
or
think
something.
like a lot of punks, especially like in the '80s, were really influenced by like I guess what we call oldies or like Motown and stuff. So I mean, like, it kind of makes sense that they
Sure.
use something
Well,
like that, but at the same time, I'm like, this also kind of looks like stock footage that was free.
it's totally like a photo that they found, and you're
Yeah.
just like, this is perfect.
100%.
Well, my favorite part of the picture is the guy on the cover. He's kind of given a
Yeah.
thumbs up, and I don't know if he's like snapping his fingers, and maybe that's just like a mid snap, but he's given this little thumbs up. uh and I don't know why, but I find that just to be very
Yeah.
endearing. So but yeah, like, but the most interesting part is you have this like dancing, they're kind of dancing, and then like you have the Guns and Wankers in
Uh-huh.
typical punk font, and then you have like this
Yeah,
slime
that is
coming down
probably the most,
covering
actually,
everything.
that's the most confusing part for me, honestly. So I'm like,
Right. Well, I mean, like, are they trying to say that like they're the slime covering this dancing and this
yeah.
music, right? Are they just slime? Are they going full
Yeah,
Nickelodeon here? Like, what's happening? Like,
it gives me very much Nickelodeon vibes. I don't know.
right? It's like that orange color as well. So, but like, what was it? You were reading the review, or you were giving your own opinion on how like everything about this album kind of like doesn't seem like the content that you're getting, and it's very fun, or not fun, but just interesting to see how this kind of like
Yeah.
unrolls, right? How this plays out as you dive into this album from cover to song. So
Yep.
it's a good cover. No, it's a good cover for sure.
All right, so let's dive into the album itself. I'm gonna let you go first. I've been talking a lot.
Okay, so the first song is called Blah Blah Blah, and I like the song, but I don't know what it's about. I can't really put my finger on it, and I thought to myself, well, maybe that's why it's called
Yeah.
Blah Blah Blah. Um, what I do know is I like it, and I think it has good melody, and I think it was a good
Yeah.
start to the album. I want to say a lot of the lyrics on this album are simple, right? It's not complicated lyrically, and that goes for most
Yeah.
of the songs. Some of the other songs I feel have a little more depth, but blah blah blah. I think it's all about the melody and the music on this one.
Yeah, I think this song kind of sets up the expectations for the album. Obviously not very serious by this title. I think
Mm-hmm.
it is a really good mix of what you're gonna hear musically. Like, you're gonna hear like this kind of melodic hardcore kind of mixed with pop elements. I'm not usually a very much of a person, like, especially in the studio. Like, I don't like to do a lot of heavy vocals on any kind of rock genre band, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually really liked how they mixed his vocals on this album. It comes really strong, and I mean, he has a great voice, so like, you don't really need it, but it did actually add to it, I think, for once.
Well, so I was gonna make this point later, but
Yeah.
the production on this record, specifically on the vocals, makes
Yeah.
it seem to me more like another instrument.
Yeah.
Because a lot of punk bands, I feel like they elevate the vocals to be the loudest part of the
It's either
song.
really loud or really buried. Like, there's no in between.
Right. And in this one, it's almost like it's another instrument. Like, I like to describe their sound as very fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the term that comes to mind when I think of both Guns and Wankers and Snuff. Also, just very a fuzzy sound. They feel the room, that your ears with this sort of, I don't want to call it the wall of sound, but very much a wave of sound that all hits you at once. There's not a lot of like solos or breakdowns or you know, any part of the band that stands out more than the other, and the vocals fit that pattern. And I like the vocals a lot. In fact, that's probably my favorite part of the production, and the arrangements here are the vocals.
He has such a unique voice and style. Like, I listened to some of the live stuff I could find on YouTube.
Doesn't he drum also?
I don't remember.
Isn't he the drummer also? I've seen a live. I saw a live video of Snuff, and the singer was the drummer. And I don't remember if like that was just a one-off, like for one song, or what. And I don't want to sound like an ignorant person, but that's what I recall. I'd have to really look into it. So don't take my word for it. Do your own research. But yeah, blah blah blah. Good start to the record.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that just like the way they build off each other, like their guitar work into drumming, like it just is like a really good endless cycle and their transitions are just really smooth.
It's seamless.
Like, in blah blah blah, you kind of get a really good taste of that without it being like kind of over the top. Let's get into Skin Deep. I'm going to let you take the lead on that one, because I would say you're probably more familiar with that than anything else, because we both really love Fat compilations. So
right. So this is probably, there's two songs on this album that I like the most, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
Second one. I'm sorry?
I probably could guess your second one, but
we'll see. We'll see in a second.
I'll tell you when it comes up.
Okay. So absolutely heard this song before. It's a good song. Finally dove into the lyrics, and it's actually a very repetitive lyrically, right?
Yes.
Like it just says the same things. And then I think to myself, well, maybe the lyrics themselves are skin deep, right? Like, is this a part of the song? I'm guessing, and it's so. My notes here, I'm saying, this is probably the point. The lyrics are a little skin deep. It's repetitive. And if you ask me what the track was about, I think it might be about superficial person. And at the end, the singer's like, I'm out here. I don't know. I like the song. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Musically, this tracks with the rest of the record.
Yeah.
But again, like what I wrote down here is I said, this album, what I like about it the most is the production, like how it was thrown together. And Skin Deep, both it melodically is a really well-made pop punk song, but with the vocals here again being like sort of the starring role, but again they're sort of set back. They're not like tweaked out and like set above all the other music. Or the instrumentation, but it's like a part of it. But like there's just something about like the way it's produced that is just so good. But Skin Deep, this is definitely like one of the more memorable tracks on the album. Yeah,
it's everybody's favorite song. I think it's the standout. I think it's the standout song of probably all those 3 EPs. Honestly, just I don't know. I really love the opening of the song. It's like just guitar, and then it goes into this like drum fills, and then you get lyrics. Like it is just like so smooth and flawless, and it's like it does such a good build. Like you're like, okay, something's about to fucking happen.
Yes.
I also think it's kind of the most nihilistic song. Just like it portrays a lot of stubbornness. It portrays a lot of like, you're wrong, I'm right, and things are just so, and it's just
right.
Because I mean, like I wrote out some of the lyrics. It's like, I won't try, I won't make it right or make it understood. Like it is just like no, and no. Like it, but everybody kind of, I think, can relate to that feeling, even though a lot of these songs obviously don't go into specifics, but it's like everybody can have that feeling of either like standing your ground and like, or just being kind of ignorant in a sense of, or just like being okay with that, or dealing with somebody doing the same to you, like kind of strong-arming you into whatever they want. So I think that's why a lot of people resonate with this song, because yeah, it's not an exact science, it's not an exact poetic feeling about that, but I think the feeling itself is relatable, as well as being a well arranged and written song. You know, also that snare outro is sick.
It's a good track, and that's a reason why it was on the Fat Comp.
Yeah, as I was saying, like out of all the songs I think they kind of put together, that was like their hit, you know?
Yeah, right.
All right. Let's do Nervous. I'll start with that just because I like the beginning effect of this song, because it like makes you, you know, like when you like walk up to a venue, you can still kind of hear it and like the people inside. I kind of like how they give you that vibe, and then they also do like this crazy like vocal loop into the actual song, and then for some reason they're just like, hey, tambourine. You know,
I thought the intro to the song, it made me anxious. Right? Like the song is it's called Nervous.
Yeah.
And like the kind of that drumming in the beginning just kind of like just makes me a little nervous myself, right? Like it feels like my nerves, like I guess. So I felt it was a good lead into a song called Nervous.
Yeah. Also, like this song sounds just like so happy, but I think like most of the content is kind of like too bad so sad kind of.
Yeah.
You know, like get over it.
I felt like the song described anxiousness. Like that's
probably why I like it. I like
yeah.
I thrive in that. I'm like, I get this.
Like that's really how I felt when I was listening to that song and reading the lyrics at the same time. I was just like, this is a good portrayal, and it's not a very long song either.
No, and like you kind of touched on it earlier as far as like their songwriting. I kind of like picked it up. They have a very formulaic way of doing it, which normally I would absolutely hate. Because I don't like bands that start the same, and I kind of don't like formulaic things. I like people to try artistically weird shit, but I think they're so good at like building this freaking, I don't know, like building this house. Like they'll take like a verse, do a chorus, do a verse, and then like kind of circle back around in a way that you don't even realize the lyrics are actually very short because of the way they stack them together. It's insane. As I'm saying, like Nervous, honestly, is probably like 12 sentences.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even less. but you can't tell when the song is playing and doing its thing. You're like, this feels like at least a short novel.
This is maybe my third favorite song on the album.
I think it's just a fun song. I'm saying it's really jovial sounding. It has tambourine. You're like, sure, but then you kind of like question it. And you're like, is this a happy song? Kind of, you know.
I wouldn't describe any of the songs on this album as happy.
They sound happy. That's what I'm saying. Like, but you never really,
they sound happy.
You're never really sure if they are. Like, you're always like,
no, right?
Not.
Sure. I think that's probably true. It's like you have these sort of like these catchy hooks and melodies, and you think, oh, this is going to be, you know, something that's going to bring my mood up. But you dive just a little bit deeper, and you're like, oh, maybe not. Maybe not as happy as it feels.
I think the next song is happy. I will say that. Blown Away, I think is, for one, I think I'm a sucker for bass intros. I think that's why I'm such a big Rancid fan.
Okay,
I'm a sucker
sure.
for it.
I mean,
so yeah, this song kind of sounds like that. Like I said, I think everybody in this band is ridiculously talented. So, and then it like starts out really aggressive, like screaming "Blown Away," and then it just kind of goes into this kind of melodic thing. But I was saying, like, it's the perfect like mix of hardcore chant and then kind of pop punk kind of melodic stuff.
It's a short and fast song, and it's catchy, and maybe because it's a little happier. I didn't really.
What do you think it's about?
Go into...
Well,
that's the thing. I don't know what it's about. My notes are this: short and fast and catchy, and that's it. That's I didn't know what it was about. Like what blows them away. I have no idea.
I think. I think it's about like being like amped up and kind of blown away by somebody. Like you like them a little bit, but it's not. I don't think it's anything that deep either, though. You know,
I didn't find it to be a very deeply, very deep track.
I think it has a feeling to it, but it's very surface level feeling. It's not like I pine for this person. It's like
this one was all about the music for me. This song, or this particular song, I like the music more than I thought about the lyrics.
Well, I mean, like the title "Blown Away" usually alludes to someone is impressing you. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's being impressed by somebody. I don't know, like I don't know what relationship or capacity or whatever, because obviously is the most vaguest thing on earth. But like that's what I was saying. Like they have emotional content, but it's just like here's happy. No other details. No other details.
Well, that's so we don't need any other details.
And honestly,
anyways.
I kind of like that.
Right?
Here's angst. Cool.
Sure. Let's go.
You know, but it does have like little things like in the lyrics. It's like it just melts away when I hear you call and things like that. You know, like it does have like little sediments to it. But yeah, it could be about a child, it could be about a lover, it could be about a pet, like I don't know.
Why not?
Yeah, but I do like the kind of like little bits of like hardcore elements in it, you know, like chanting, you know, some of the like musical work in it too kind of gives it that, but it's such a weird how they play with both of those genres very well. Let's go on to Help.
Help.
It's a kind of slower track.
This is actually probably my favorite song.
I was gonna guess the next one, but okay. Damn it.
No, this is my favorite one on the record. I think it's an awesome song.
I thought I had it.
I think it's got a great melody. What is the song about? Well, I think the last line. So I thought about this song a lot too, like lyrically, because I think there's something. I think this might be the deepest song on the album lyrically. Yeah, and I wonder. I feel like it's about maybe loss or even grief. And I don't know if, you know, that's just what I read into it. And I think the last line, and that's the thing, I can't tell how they feel based on this, but I think the last line kind of gives it away. Yeah. And it says, "At least I found a better place without you." Yeah. And so my first thought is this about separation from someone that maybe gave them a hard time, or did they find a better place without someone that they cared about? Like they moved on, right? Is this like them moving on? But just the way it's worded, it almost doesn't strike me as like sad grief, but maybe like I said, loss of someone that maybe without them, they're now doing better, right? Like, so it's much more of a complicated song than the rest of the songs on this album, and maybe that's why I like it. This is like my favorite song on this record. Plus the title "Help," right? Like again, like that's why I think maybe it's about like loss or grief, because they need help. They need some sort of help rather than escaping or getting out of a situation where they're like, well, I'm in a better place without you. More like, at least now I'm in a better place.
Yeah.
You, right.
I don't think there's like a whole lot of slow songs on this album. I think like this and one other one are the only two that are kind of like semi-serious, you know, which I find really interesting as well. Like, I don't know.
But I really like this song. So this one in Skin Deep, like if I were going to make like, if I was putting together like a playlist and I, Guns and Wankers, and I was going to put a couple Guns and Wankers songs, right? I would put those two, Skin Deep and Help.
Yeah. I think, okay, now looking at it, it's like Help and Raise Your Glass, I think are like the only songs that are kind of low tempo and like kind of serious or have more work into them. I love this song a lot. I mean, I love every song on this album, like they're my own children. But Help is, oh my god, like it's just like, it makes me feel really optimistic because I think it ends in a positive note, but like everything before that, oh my god, it's just like guts me.
Yeah,
I definitely think this song, like much of this album, is left to interpretation. A lot of this song could be about overcoming something, a recovery. It could be about a bounce back from a breakup, and then kind of, but I think the overall thing is appreciating being in a better place than you were at one point. Like I said, it could be from any of those things that I listed, but I think that's kind of, what people attach to. It's like, I got out of whatever the heck was happening, and then I ended up somewhere so much better. It's like that feeling of that relief, is, I think, what resonates with a lot of people. I like how it has like little hints of kind of pop music through it, and it's a very like melodically written song.
Yeah, awesome melody. I thought that was just, it's
I
very
was
catchy.
saying, like, I could definitely remember it in my head when I like we're obviously not listening to the album or recording it at the same time because that'd be a mess. But like, I can audibly remember it, is what I'm trying to say, like in my brain.
Right.
So like, that is hard to do for a lot of people who write songs. But oh my god, I've embarrassingly probably cried to this song in my car like way too many times. Because like, I have certain albums I like to listen to on like either long drives or like to help me stay awake at night after like coming home from a show or something. So like, these are one of my albums that I'll be like, oh man, I probably shouldn't have listened to this.
That's how you know music is good, though, when it can move you to like certain emotions, right? Like it can make you cry, or it can make you happy, or give you energy, or inspire you, right? Like, have you ever listened to like a song and like the hair on the back of your neck stands up, right? Like that's what music does. That's why people love music, right? It gives them the feels.
Do you have a cry track right now? Do you do that?
Do I? I'm trying to think. At the moment, no. Like I if I'm upset, I probably are going to listen to, like, if I'm kind of sad, I'll probably listen to Pine Grove right now. Like that's been my band for the last like 4 years.
And this is like several years too late. I started getting into beach slang again, and I've been listening to Dirty Cigarettes. That's like my sad song.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I'm really just listening to like a lot of electronic music these days, or like just kind of like I don't want to, it's not like new wave, but like modern synth wave. I listen to a lot of that stuff these just to keep the vibe.
My safe album is what I call it. It's like when I need to like chill the fuck out is Cocktail Twins is like,
oh, there you go.
Is like my sweet spot. I'm like, I'm safe in my tiny little womb of this album.
I don't know. Like I said, I've been listening to a lot of like electronic and like synthwave these days. And so not all of it has like singing. It's a lot of just like
vibes,
right? And like that's kind of how I'm feeling
sometimes
these days,
you're
right?
like, I don't need any more mental stimulation, I just need vibes.
Right, exactly.
But I'm saying Help used to be that song for me. That's why I'm like,
And I can see why. It's a good song, and it has it's the best lyric song on the album.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will definitely say the next song, Sunstroke, I think is also a top contender, and I think a lot of people really like.
It's a good song.
Yeah.
No, it's a good song for sure. I wasn't really sure what it's about.
I've never been sure. It's probably, I would say, it's probably one of my favorite songs, and like, I still kind of like, I don't know what it's about. Like, I'm still like last night. I was like trying to think, like, how could I even explain what I even vaguely know it to be? Here are my guesses. I think it's a song about lovers or a lovers triangle that is a disaster, and then somebody could possibly be knocked up, but it's like the song is kind of dramatic sounding, so I was like, okay, that's kind of is. Right. And then like some of the lyrics kind of allude to secrecy, and there's like two women's names, and I'm like
right, we got Julie and Sophie, and what's going on with them, and the last verse is kind of, I think, where they where you can maybe glean the real meaning. You thought the grass was greener, okay, so maybe you went from one person to another, but it was all in your head, right? It was a dream, and but your dreams don't count. Holy crap, that's dark to me, because like even if my life sucks, if I still have a dream that I want to like work towards, at least I have that. And if your dreams don't count, and then the real world comes, boy, that's some awfully bleak realism, like just or like coming into the world. And it's like, so is this like, was this about lost dreams? But I think you're probably right. Like it's some sort of weird love triangle or something that just went wrong. It was hard for me to say, but melody, excellent. Another good pop punk track.
And I can
right? And
even say to another level, like this is like the nerdiest thing ever. Like, so I was in music school. I am not good at theory. There's very few things that I can remember, honestly. Like I always kind of hint at what the hell I'm talking about, but I never nail it, so that's probably why a lot of people are going to call me out for that. But my favorite thing I ever learned in music school is arpeggios, and he literally does that with his voice. So you're like going up 3 notes and then back down and back up. I rarely hear that in punk. Like it's very common in like indie and electronic kind of wave stuff. They, like Churches does it a lot. If I had to give an example of a band that does it, but the fact that they did it in this song is like just phenomenal. I can't believe like they made something like that work.
Well, and it shows you that punk rock isn't just about barely being able to play music, which was the old punk stereotype. Like, oh, can you play 3 chords? Cool. You can
and I think a lot of people don't
kind of thing.
Pull their own inspiration, especially from different genres, because I think they get this mental block that it won't work. And like I think the best recent example of that is when Dave Grohl was talking about drumming for Nirvana, and he was just like, the beginning of Smells Like Teen Spirit is literally because I was a fan of the Gap Band. And they do that disco intro. It's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, that's 100% Gap Band, because I also really love Gap Band. So I was like, holy shit! I would have never thought loving both of those bands separately like would have intertwined those things together. That's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of one of those funny things where it's like this is something you would hear in indie music or like opera or like any other kind of heavily vocal genre, but no one's ever thought maybe to use it in punk because it's too pretty. It's too pretty.
I agree. And this has always been a criticism that I have about punk rock. And it's like, if you just listen to punk rock music and you create a punk rock band, you're not going to sound like anything other than kind of I want to say cookie cutter. You might be good, but like you're going to sound like a band I've heard a dozen times. But when you look at and we can go and look at early punk first. They're all inspired by non-punk rock, right? Because it didn't exist, right? The Ramones are just, I think Joey Ramone was like, oh, we're just like Motown sped up, or like, you know, like that 60s pop music sped up. And when you listen to the Ramones, that's exactly what they are. They're 60s pop music sped up and fast. When you listen to like the Clash, they have so many, you know, inspirations that are not punk rock, right? That's why they sound so much better. And so when you listen to other bands that, you know, we'll go back to another fat band, Lagwagon, who's not inspired just by punk, but by like metal, right? It's in their sound and it becomes something different and better. And you get all these other bands that, you know, I think when there's sort of a glut of a certain type of music and they're just inspired by punk, right? You can hear it and you're like, okay, I've heard it before. And like, there's so many like local bands that I can think of when I was younger that like, you could tell all they listened to was other local bands because they all sounded like a local band. And I'm not saying local bands are bad, but like, I'm just saying they all sounded like very similar. But then you'd have another band who's like inspiration. There was a band that I really used to like called Your Mother, and they were hugely inspired by Weird Al Yankovic.
Right? Okay.
Right. And you think, well, that's weird. But like, because of that, but it is weird, right? Weird Al. But because of that, they were very unique sounding. They had like really bizarre lyrics. And as soon as you understand like, oh, that's like one of their inspirations, no wonder, you know, they write weird songs. And just as an example, right? So I wish when I was younger, more punk bands were like, oh, you know, we don't just listen to other punk bands. I wish they listened to like, you know, metal or orchestra music, or even like, you know, rap music. Some of them did, but like,
I think that's also why like people that were doing hip hop are doing more rock and stuff now, like
MGK.
There are people that do it a lot better than he does. He just happens to be the most popular. But as I'm saying, like, kind of taking those fun elements from there and kind of making your own is kind of what makes it awesome, you know, and that's why it is very popular right now, you know, because they're like, oh shit, we haven't had guitars in music, in popular music at least, for a long time, so that's kind of refreshing. And then also people that aren't, you know, stereotypically rock people, or white for that matter, like doing different stuff, people are like, oh, holy shit, this is a thing now.
No, that's good. Well, and that's why I think, I mean, music education in this country is very poor. People don't get exposure outside of either, you know, their own cultural group, or I guess like TikTok now or something. But like,
that's helping.
I wish in schools we had better music education, where people where you listen to music, right? Where you're like, this is, you know, Mozart, and then this is you know, some metal band, right? Like it always reminds, I'm always reminded of Spinal Tap, where he cites his like I think one of the guitar players cites like his influences of all these like classical musicians, and that and like you hear it like in the actual like Spinal Tap songs, right? And I really like that, and I think it'd be interesting to see like a punk band who was like, yeah, we fucking love Beethoven.
You'd be surprised.
I know exactly, and I know there's a lot of punk musicians
in our local scene. We have a lot of musical theater punks. It's quite fun.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
We'll go to the musical sometimes.
That's interesting.
And not tell anybody. Let's jump into the last two tracks. The song Surprise. Thoughts, feelings.
Another quick song, another fast one. Simple lyrics.
Yeah.
I like, there's a little like breakdown.
Yeah.
Kind of in the middle of the song, and that's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's like this kind of metally, riffy kind of little part. Yeah.
Right.
For no reason. I love it.
It stands out to me. That really stands out to me in this song. And when I'm listening to it, I always like that part. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is the best part of this song. And it's not a long song. It's a pretty short song.
Yeah.
But I think this is another one where it's about the music. The lyrics are almost inconsequential, other than, you know, getting a melody across to us.
I think it's pretty straightforward. Like, it's literally about a surprise.
Surprise!
Like, yeah, it's really funny that way. I'm like, that's just a weird theme, but it works. And I was saying, they do some fun musical stylings in there and whatnot, and it's just kind of like a upbeat song the entire way through. You're just like, because it's about a fucking surprise. whatever it is, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, they'll give you a feeling, but no context. So
right. Well, it kind of like Blown Away. It's almost like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Right. Because like Blown Away, we have the song Nervous, which I told you I made me nervous. So you get Blown Away. It's short, it's fast, it's quick. And then we get Help, Sunstroke, and you're like, oh, geez, there's some stuff going on. And then Surprise, again, it's like a palate cleanser, and you're just like, okay, cool, we can watch that. But it's really all about the next track, Raise Your Glass.
Yeah, I was like, I definitely wanted to dig in this one because it's probably the longest song on there.
Yes.
And then it's also probably longer lyrically as well, comparatively. It's actually probably more realized traditional song, I would say, at least the format of it. And it's so crazy to think that this album's only like 20 minutes. So like when you get here, you're at like the 15-minute mark. I think this is a really good closer for the album, especially knowing the fact that this album wasn't intended to be in this order or had of any specific vision. It just was like literally cut and pasted together.
Sure.
You know? So I think it's a good choice to end the album. I think if it was in the middle or the beginning, I probably would have been like, I don't understand what's happening. But I think it ends it really well. I think the drumming on this intro is insane. I kind of like how everybody in the band has their own little spotlight in every intro of the song. So it's like, oh, cool, the drummer has an intro. Like, there's a bass intro, there's vocal craziness in the intro. So, like, I find that really fascinating in this album that, you know, everybody has their role and everybody's really good at their role.
Hopefully.
Yeah. And I also really like the crazy kind of lyrics in this song because it's also kind of a nihilist song of like, you know, something is literally gonna blow up in your face, and they're obviously comparing it to like a bomb blast, but it's either like, you know that you're gonna keep doing this, or this is continually gonna happen through your life, and you're just gonna see who's left, and that can honestly be seen in a good or bad way. Like, you're gonna keep doing this until you have no one left in your life, or this is something that just happens to you and then all your good people stick around. Like, I can't tell which way it lands, but I also like the fact of like the song's kind of like, well, fuck it, you know, like shit happens and we're just gonna keep drinking until, you know, we figure it out. Like, just fuck everything. I don't know.
This is why it's the most punk song on this record. Because it's very much to me a punk reaction, like you said. Fuck it, I'm just gonna have a fucking drink, right?
Just
cheers, mate. Boom, and like,
just enjoy the downward spiral, you know.
Right, like I think it's like, to all, you know, like if I were to have like a toast and base it off this song, it'd be like, to all the hard times, to the people we lost, or just to forgetting. Fuck yeah, let's have a drink. So like, we all know life is hard. We all know that there's going to be times that shit happens. We can't control it. And sometimes you just have to be like, well, at least I get to see it happen. Let's take a drink, right?
I also think it's the other way too. Like, you know, you're a fucked up person. You're an asshole. And that you're like, you're to the point where like, you can anticipate shit like hitting the fan, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
might as well enjoy it.
You know, like when you make a decision and you're like, this is probably not going to turn out well, but I'm still going to do nothing about this. And I'm still going to do it. Like, this song definitely gives me that vibe of like, I know what I'm doing, in a sense of like, this is absolutely 100% going to blow up in my face, but I'm still going to do it anyway.
Right. It is the most punk song on this record. And it is about, so, you know, I do raise my glass to this track. So.
You know, I also like the fact that they have just one lyric of bullocks.
Every punk album needs to have the word bullocks in it once, hopefully.
I don't think American punk fans can do it very well. It doesn't. No. It sounds too forced. But
what's the American version of bullocks? Like, I don't think there is. There's got to be something that Americans say that. Do you think that there's something that Americans say that Brits are like, man, that's a great swear word? Like, I wonder, because they're good. The maybe people in the UK can swear pretty well. They're pros.
I think the only I guess I'm gonna guess the equivalent would be like when Southern and people try not to swear, it just turns out really funny. So like that's the only equivalent I can think of.
I mean, like
dag nabbit, like,
oh, there you go.
You know, like something like that. Like, it's such a weird word, but you're just trying not to say like the F word.
It was, you know, Southerners have the bless your heart, which to me is just the ultimate. Like, there's nothing we have like as like living in Western United States that is the equivalent to that. Like,
you'll never forget.
That is some like first... backhanded
compliment, dude.
Compliment is so. It's so good.
I did a whole college speech on that once. I had to do like an art project about just different thing, and I did like a visual thing, and it was like a really pretty floral bless your heart, and I would talk about how like it's either a very endearing thing or a fucking hurtful thing.
Right.
You know?
Right. I have a friend from Arkansas. We would talk on the phone, and anytime I would say something that was remotely stupid, she'd be like, "Oh, bless your heart," and I'd just laugh so
it's
hard.
The after the bless your heart, it's like, bless your heart. Why are you so stupid? You know, like,
yeah, it's the unspoken words after.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, raise your glass and bullocks, absolutely. But you're right. It's a very good song to end this on, especially like you said, there was no, it was all thrown together, cut and pasted together. And so there was no, like maybe theme that they were going for.
Yeah.
But this ends it well.
I think so. Genuinely, did you like re-listening to the album than probably previously, or just
it's been a long time, because I probably haven't heard it since the 90s.
Yeah.
So overall, I think if you like Snuff, this is good. Like, if you want to go back and listen to things that like bands did earlier in their career, or musicians did early in their career, I think this is something you should listen to. Plus, there are a few songs on here that, like I said, I could easily toss onto a mix, no problem, and be like, this is a good song. Help, Nervous, Sunstroke, Skin Deep are the standouts to me, and that that's like half the album, right? But it's production to me. The production of this album is what I like the best, and I touched on it at the beginning. But it's very fuzzy, if that makes any sense. Like the distortion, the vocals, even the drums and the bass, it has this fuzzy feeling. And I don't mean like warm fuzzy, but like the textural fuzzy. It just feels fuzzy. Even the vocals, and the vocals are, to me, and again, we already went over this. It's the most interesting part of how this album is produced to me.
Exactly.
Because I don't feel that they're the star of the show, like I do in so many other bands. Like, if I listen to the Dead Kennedys, to me the vocals are absolutely the star of the show.
Yeah.
Right. Or something like, or even like NoFX, who musically they're super talented and excellent musicians, but like it's still about vocals, right? Even Propaganda, and maybe even No Use for a Name, like just other Fat Records bands that we've kind of touched on. But like this, the vocals are a part of the arrangement, and sometimes and maybe it's because of those British accents that they described in the description on the Fat Wreck site. I can't necessarily understand what they're saying without like reading the lyrics. So again, like, because of that, like it's just one tapestry of music. It fills my eardrums. Um, and it just, that is what I like the most about this record, is how it's produced. And now, like, no, but I know that it's produced like in separate EPs, but like that is definitely how even Snuff gets produced.
Right.
You listen to now in some Snuff albums, the lyrics or the vocals are definitely they're much more distinct, but I still feel that that's just like their artistic vision in general. And I like it, and it's the reason why I like the band Snuff as well.
Yeah, I know this is controversial. I like Snuff. I have no complaints about Snuff.
Yeah,
but I highly like Guns and Wankers better. I don't know.
It all depends on your emotional attachment, I think.
Yeah, I was saying I enjoy listening to Snuff. I have quite a few albums that I listen to that I like, but it, like, when it comes to the albums itself, there are songs that I specifically like, and maybe not the album as a whole, which you know, it's really common with any album. But I think this album to me raised the bar way too high, because, you know, it's short, to the point, lyrically good, musicians fantastic, and that's what I'm saying, like, it's really hard to overdo that, in my opinion, at least the way that I learned all this music history and stuff. So I'm like, I can't go back and be like, started with Snuff first and then this. This just stuck out way too more to me than anything of that Snuff has done. But that's saying, I'm not saying that Snuff is not great. It is. But I will say my final thoughts on this. The reason why I think this album is truly special, other than the fact that it is from two very good bands, or a meld of two bands, is that it's kind of like this. It's kind of like a secret album, and I say that very loosely. So back in the 90s, pre-internet, it actually was very hard to find this album. So, like, when I first learned this album, and I thought, I never listened to the full album probably to like the mid 2000s, even though it had been obviously a long time since it had been released. I just couldn't track a copy down or whatever. And so I would listen to, you know, the couple songs I got from Fat, and then I found a copy, I think, on like LimeWire that someone had. That's what I'm saying. Like, I finally found a digital copy somehow. And then I also found a copy on MySpace. Somebody posted up.
Oh, that makes sense. Sure. I could see that.
It wasn't even on YouTube. As I'm saying, like, it wasn't even on YouTube yet. Or if it was, it wasn't like the full album. It'd be like Skin
right.
Deep
I had to
something.
re-listen to this album on YouTube because it wasn't on Spotify.
It is on Spotify now, but that didn't even happen until recently.
The thing
either.
on Spotify, though, it's like all the EPs. I think it's not just. I don't think it was just.
No, they're the full albums there, but I'm saying it probably wasn't there maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, these are still really recent things, and the fact that they repressed this on vinyl is just like amazing. And I think it's a testament to the fact that there are a lot of fans, punk music fans, that really love and covet this album for reasons. You know, like, it's a very well written album, and I think it has really stood the test of time at this point. You know, what was that, like 20, almost 30 years ago at this point? So, like, and we're still talking about it, and people are still listening to it, and people are still buying copies of it, even though it's, like, you know, not this multi-million-dollar selling album, but, like, I think a certain fan base really understands what this band, side project, whatever, was trying to do, even if it was, like, this fluke. It wasn't meant to be,
and it,
you know?
It came out in a very interesting time, right? So the band had existed. I mean, Guns and Wankers existed as really an entity, 91 to 94, which is sort of this, you know, right before the reemergence of punk rock as a popular genre of music. And had it come out a year later, maybe more people would be talking about it, right? Maybe it would have had a bigger, you know, distribution. Maybe Guns and Wankers would have lasted longer, right? But, you know, to me, it's okay. It's worth a listen, I think, right? You know,
Well, I think people need to know that when we do these like EPs and stuff, these are like personal choices.
Yeah.
Like we did Daily Grind because of you, but I was really honestly I'm not
Sure.
not a fan of No Use for a Name, but the album
I love that
bummed
record
me
so
out.
much. Right. Well,
We're just being
and
honest.
so like I'm glad that we did this, because like sometimes talking about these albums makes you think about them in a different way. Right? Like if I had just listened to it, I probably would have been like, and moved on with my life. But when I had to look at the lyrics, okay, there's some songs on here that I think, okay, I will toss these on a playlist. I will, uh, listen to.
I still listen to this like at least twice a year. It's when I'm really truly stuck on something for life, like it'll stay in there. It'll stay in there. Like I can't listen to it a lot because it gets me too hype. This Refuse gets me really hype. I can't listen to it all the time. I get too excited. So this is also on that as well. But man, but I mean, I'm glad you probably.
Well, and I'm glad you selected this as something that we should listen to. And then speaking of things that we should listen to, we have a couple of options for our next podcast, right? So the first, I'm looking at the list right here. We could talk about Fat Music for Fat People, which is a seminal album in the fact that it came out in, obviously 1994. But it was the preview for Fat Records, right? Like this is what I think. I didn't know anything about Fat Records until I heard this album, Fat Music for Fat People. Alternatively, we could talk about the next studio record. What's the next Face to Face? Don't Turn Away. But that's a reissue. That's a reissue, right? Of a Doctor Strange release. Or if we skip that Face to Face album, we could talk about Good Riddance, Forgotten Country. Which is also a fantastic record. So what I think we should do, we should leave it up a mystery to what we'll be talking about next weekend or next time. And then you'll have to tune in to find out what we settle on.
So what you're saying is we need to make a schedule.
And I think like if we can, I think we are going to have a good time. And if these are all seminal 90s Fat Records albums that really paved the way for where punk was and where it went in the 90s.
I know. I think the only pain in the ass about starting from the point that we're at is like I really like new Fat Records like releases. Like Paris is one of my favorite bands, so like it's always kind of like, oh man, it's so far from Paris.
Well, there's other albums that like came out in like the early 2000s and I'm like, man, these are so good. Like Zero Down, they put out a fantastic record in like the early 2000s. There's Rise Against is a Fat Records band, right? So right, exactly. Randy, well, I don't know if Randy, I think Randy was on the Bleeding Heart, but Randy is a really good band. Swinging Utters,
yes, I do. Oh man, I will live and die for Swinging Utters.
Bracket is coming up also.
I have a good Bracket story.
Okay, well, I guess that's it, right? I think we're done.
Okay. Yeah, so we're gonna make a new schedule.
We're gonna keep to it a little more persistently, I think. But I'm ready for the next. I'm ready for the next show, and we'll talk about what we're gonna listen to.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for getting wrecked with us, or just a little tipsy, I guess.
And
not a full on.
Keep up with us on our socials, which are, of course, on whatever audio podcast format you're listening to. They're right there. You can see them. I'm physically pointing at them.
I know. It's like,
but you can see them if you look properly with your eyes.
Yeah, and if we're smart, we'll link it in the bio.
All right,
because I don't feel like we're listing them all out right now because this isn't a full episode. So
everyone, have a good week, month, year, and go get wrecked.